Welcome and thank you for joining us today. We are going to be talking about the 5 signs that you've outgrown your quality management system. And before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items. First, if you need any assistance during today's broadcast, you'll see that there is a chat function at the bottom of your screen. Go ahead and send us a message and we will work to resolve any issues. You'll see there's also a Q&A function down at the bottom of your screen. You can send us questions at any time, but we will have a dedicated Q&A session after our presentation. My name is Jessica Madsen, and I am the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at MasterControl over our Quality Excellence Solution.
And I'm Marty Smythe. I'm the SVP of Go-to-Market Strategy here at MasterControl. And as we mentioned, we're going to take you through the 5 signs that you might have outgrown your QMS. One of the things to focus on is outgrowing. And when we think about this, we think a lot about how companies evolve as they grow. And that can come down to things like your commercial maturity. A lot of companies select their first QMS when they're still in an R&D stage with their first product. And as that product matures, gets through clinical trials and is commercially available, the management of the quality life cycle gets more complex. A lot of that comes down to kind of the second point here of a much larger quality event profile. Now, that could be just the maturity of a single product, or you may be at a point in your company's trajectory where you now have multiple products, multiple different types of products. They have different stages of development to commercialization, and the quality landscape gets more complex for you. Also, sometimes we see that the portfolio of your products, whether that's through what you developed yourself or through mergers and acquisitions, expands and becomes more complicated, and managing that requires a more robust QMS system than maybe you originally purchased. And then the regulatory posture in general, as you get more products in more markets, you're subject to more regulatory burden, and the ability to manage that through your QMS system, you need a system that matches that complexity. So as we talk about that, it's a good thing to keep in mind, because a lot of times outgrowing the QMS is a good thing from your company's perspective. You've grown, and you just need to right size that and make sure you have the right system in place.
So we know that often happens because those companies like yours often come to us at MasterControl for a better and more comprehensive solution. Over 1,100 organizations use MasterControl for their quality management software, and we are lucky enough to call some of the top life sciences companies in the world our customers. And so that leads us into the 5 main signs that we're going to go over today. First is how much configurability you're allowed with your system, or lack of configurability, how comprehensive the validation solutions are from your vendor, if the system can do everything that you need top to bottom, and if it can automate all of those things that you need it to do, and how innovative the system is. Is it keeping up with trends? Are you able to benefit from the latest technology? And is that vendor making sure that you are able to use that and stay ahead of your competition?
Good. Let's start with the configuration. We hear from a lot of customers when they're looking to move in from one QMS to perhaps a more robust QMS. A lot of times it really comes down to configurability. And I think this has been a big spectrum in the QMS industry over the last several years. You originally had on-premise systems that were fully customizable, but that's because it was customized code and you had to pay for that, and it took the time to do that, and you could get exactly the system you wanted that way. When QMS systems moved into the cloud, there was a big push for configurability without the coding. And there's a lot of advantages to that, but it still takes a really robust system to be able to push that full configurability to the end user, versus what a lot of smaller QMSs do is they do a best practice configuration, which can be really great for when you're getting started. It's easy to get up and going with. You kind of adapt your process to the system. And when you're a smaller organization with a less complex product and product development and production life cycles, it can work just fine for you. But when they say you can configure, they're often only talking about flipping on a module or flipping a module off, flipping a field on or flipping it off. And this gives you a little bit more flexibility, But as you mature and need to really tailor your processes and have a system that supports your unique process, that kind of has a lifespan, and it hits a point where it becomes very frustrating that you can no longer seem to adapt the system to what you need to do, and you need to look at a system that has full configurability. We often refer to this as full no-code configurability. And so that is something where you start to see this breakdown where some of these systems built on, like, say, a Salesforce.com platform, they only have so much that they can allow for the end user to tailor because it's using a generic software platform. So with that, we kind of start to see that companies go out and start to look for, the best of both worlds. And that's where MasterControl really focuses. We want to be able to provide companies with best practice out of the box templates, because there are a lot of instances where that is still very effective, and it does, create efficiencies. It makes it easier to adopt. But we don't want that to be the end of the journey. We want you to have the full configurability, either based on those templates or completely designing your own process. And that can be your own forms, your own workflows, your own routing structures, your own data models, your own metadata. Like, the ability to actually fine-tune all of that to your specific needs is where we see a full-fledged system like MasterControl being something that people look to grow into. Okay, and so this is what we see with a lot of our customers when they, have been with a smaller system and they make that step up to MasterControl. And this is a quote from one of our customers that, I think really sums that up. And that's that, I'll just read a little bit to you. With our previous system, we were having to change more and more of our SOPs to fit the system, rather than the system being able to really support their SOPs. And the summary of this is, you end up spending more time adapting your process to the limitations of a system, rather than executing the processes that your business needs to the best of your ability, because the system can adapt to those processes. And so that's what MasterControl really tries to provide, is the ability to let your business flow, because we can enable and support your process, whatever it is.
Okay, so let's dive into the next step, and that is validation. So when you're using a QMS, you must validate to ensure that the software is fit for its intended purpose. And many of the vendors around with QMSs will provide you with existing documentation to help you validate, and that's great. The FDA wants you to be able to rely on that vendor validation help in order to eliminate some of that validation burden. But where the key really comes in is what you can do after implementation. So if you try to change your configuration or implement any custom solutions or add anything, a lot of times you won't be able to use that prepackaged validation from your vendor. And that means you're all the way back to doing manual validation testing that takes a ton of time, a ton of effort, and could be ripe with a lot of different errors. So that's really key. You want to be able to make sure that you're not risking noncompliance by having to do manual effort just because you needed to change something to fit your processes, like what Marty was just talking about. So with MasterControl, you can continue to rely on that vendor help while still being able to configure your processes. We are the market leaders in risk-based validation. In fact, we were pushing risk-based validation years before the FDA had it as their official guidance, because we knew that that's where the industry was going. And we have two patented tools which really help our customers with that. First of all, we have VXT, which is comprehensive risk assessment and change control assessment for validation after software upgrades and during implementation. And we also just released last year Validation on Demand, which is automated validation testing that is targeted to your custom uses and workflows that you develop, so you can iterate and validate as much as you need. And then that flexibility that Marty was just talking about remains a benefit instead of adding to a really extensive validation burden. And of course, we have the proof to back it up. The average time that customers take doing their validation after a quarterly software upgrade when they use our VXT tool is 45 minutes. Over 90% of our customers do no official formal extra manual validation testing after they use VXT, and our customers have had zero regulatory findings related to validation when they use our tools. And this quote that we have here really highlights the benefits of being able to use that vendor validation because it frees up time to be able to focus on what's important and making sure that your quality management is running how you expect without a really extensive burden that can take sometimes weeks or months. You can literally have it done in minutes and with the click of a button. So that is a great benefit for our customers.
And, the other thing that we often look at is the amount of functionality in a system. A lot of times when you start with a smaller QMS and it's really focused on what you'll often hear referred to as out-of-the-box functionality, it's always important to remember that, to get to out-of-the-box functionality, you're depending on a vendor to have made some selection criteria about what that functionality is, and that it is a baseline amount of functionality to meet a wide number of customer needs. It always means trade-offs. It always means there's some level of functionality that they deemed not essential out of the box. But it's the vendor that is deemed that, not you as the customer or as the user of the system. So it's really important to start to think as you grow about looking for a system that really has a wide breadth of functionality and the ability for you to choose the depth of that functionality that you want to use versus having it chosen for you. And so this can be things for limits on document downloads, limits on PDF publishing and how that's happening, limits on the audit trail, how long it's maintained, things like that, that you should be the one that's able to make those decisions and the system should be able to support it for you, not the other way around. And it also comes a lot of times to reporting and analytics. One of the biggest areas where a lot of QMS vendors get out of the box is in reports. This means that they're taking a view of their system and deciding what types of reports to create and make available to you as the end user. But as your business grows, your ability to report on your operations can become, very tailored to the needs of your business and very tailored to the needs of your executive team that wants to see a certain thing in a certain way. And you want to be able to go in and do that yourself. So one of the things that we really look at is how do we take our 30 years of experience in the quality management space and not take that and lock it down to only out-of-the-box reports. We want to take that and give you out-of-the-box reports that are best practice and that we see from our customer base all the time. Many of them often originate from customers like you, and they submit them back to us and say that I created this and it was been really useful, and we prepackage that into the product so other people can use it. But that should only be the starting point. We want to make sure that you have the full ability to self-author your own reporting, your own dashboards, your own KPIs, and be able to set up things the way you need to, the way your executives need to see them, so that you can actually run your business your way. And that really comes down to, the not just the breadth of functionality, but a depth of functionality as well. And we'll look at another customer quote that we think kind of brings that to life in a great way. I have a lot of experience with eQMS. The one I was using before from a previous company, some were somewhat limited and others were very limited. When they came to MasterControl, they were really looking for a more robust system that's also easy to use. And so that's something that we really focus on is we give you a great depth of functionality, wide range of features, but make them intuitive to use so that you can get what you want out of the system very effectively.
So our next topic is automation, and to be able to automate a lot of that functionality that Marty was just talking about. And that is the key to efficient quality that really adds to your bottom line and becomes a benefit for your entire company. So, a lot of times, basic systems might rely on disconnected modules that don't share processes or don't share data, and that can lead to a lot of issues, like extensive manual work where you're having to re enter a lot of data, limited data sharing where you can't connect the data for reporting, or even just a continued reliance on paper. And that leads to a lack of understanding of how everything in your system is working together, or worse, not working together, and you're missing a lot of opportunities for improvement. And sometimes when these systems do connect, it's by very fragile APIs that can be disrupted, from everything from a software upgrade that you need and is necessary, or to wanting to change your processes because something isn't working for you anymore, or it's just not working the way that you expect and you're not sharing the type of data that you initially wanted to be able to share. So with MasterControl, we have always been a big believer in closed loop quality, and that is why all of our quality management is connected on one native platform that really connects and automates everything to make sure that you're in the best position possible. So let's walk through what that might look like in a real world scenario. You may have a quality event that is triggered by a customer complaint or a nonconformance, and you can take a look at that quality event and assess it for risk and decide if you need to escalate that to a Kappa. And then you'll be able to launch and link one from another so that all of that data is shared and you aren't re-entering things that you don't need to. Once your Kappa is resolved and you decide how you want to move forward with prevention, that may require updating certain documentation, standard operating procedures, and at that point you can automatically link and launch a change control that will track all of those changes to the documentation and capture all of the approvals for that, and it will automatically archive old versions and make the new version the document of record. And even better, it can then automatically trigger training to make sure that everybody who is involved is trained on that new document so that you are completely compliant. You don't want to end up where you had somebody trained on the wrong version of a document, or where you thought somebody finished their compliance training and they didn't. And MasterControl makes it really easy to make sure that that doesn't happen and that you are completely ready for audits. It's all traceable, it's all recorded, and it's all completely auditable. And as you can see from this quote, that really makes a big deal for our customers. Basically, how all the modules connect and being able to launch processes automatically saves a lot of time. And my favorite part of this quote is where they say, it's a big deal, because it is. The whole point of going digital is to make sure that you're able to gain from those efficiencies.
So we're going to wrap up with the fifth sign that you may have outgrown your QMS by circling back to kind of one of the topics we started the conversation with, and that's really around growth. As you are growing, it's not by accident. You've invested in that growth. You've invested in R&D, you've invested in new product development, you've invested in strategic partnerships that help you as a company either expand your portfolio or get those products into more markets. And it's investment in that helps you grow. And that's really where we look at, you have to have a QMS that's invested in new innovation. And so when we think about, systems that are limited in their features and functionality, they're also usually limited in their investment in new feature and functionality. These are often smaller companies, and they may not have the access to capital or the revenue to drive this. But it manifests itself in things like very infrequent updates. And this means that you're not getting new feature and functionality, you're not getting improved user experiences quickly. And as you're a growing business, you want that to be happening quarterly or faster. You also want access to new emerging technologies like machine learning and AI. This is something that a lot of companies that are a little bit more limited in scope, they are doing the basics, not the more advanced applications of technology, and that manifests itself in a lack of these features. And then you may also come across, QMS providers where quality, is part of their focus, but it's not their full focus, or they may be outside of life sciences and only have a few life science customers. So the features and functionality enhancements that you do see don't feel like they're applicable to you because they were developed for either a general purpose or outside of life sciences for a different industry and ported over into a product that they're asking you to use. So MasterControl really looks at, the ability to, invest quite a bit of our R&D in new product development. And when we say quite a bit, we're talking 40% of our revenue reinvested in new features and functionality for our customer base. And we're doing that on a very rapid basis. We're releasing that quarterly so that customers, with the tools like Jessica mentioned on validation for the VXT and the validation on demand, can accept new feature and functionality very, very quickly and ensure it's in a validated state and without the resource or disruption to their business. So it's the best of both worlds. Hasn't always been the case in the QMS space, and it's something that MasterControl has really pioneered. And then when it comes to things like advanced technologies like AI and machine learning, one of the things that we are really proud of is that we work with our large customer base to really understand practical applications of that technology and release that to our customer base. So this is things that aren't just blanket statements about AI being transformational. It's about taking things like generative AI, applying them to something very practical like exam generation, document translation, and being able to get that in the hands of our customers, get them using it, get them testing it and improving the learning models on it so that it's highly effective and not just hype.
So it's easy to see that MasterControl doesn't just believe in helping you with quality and continuous improvement and making sure that you have the functionality and the validation available to always continuously improve, but that we are dedicated to it with our own software as well. We are the #1 QMS in life sciences and the leader on multiple review sites, including G2, based on insights from our actual customers and reviews from our actual customers. And I think of all of the quotes that we have in this presentation, this one is my favorite because it really shows how people really become dedicated to MasterControl and believe in us to really help them with their quality management. No matter what company they're in, they trust us to help them. And now we'd like to hear from you. We have a few questions that have made it into the chat, and so we are going to go through those right now. Let's see, you mentioned your upcoming AI tools. Can you dive deeper into some examples? Marty, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So MasterControl is dedicated to exploring and developing and releasing AI tools for our customer base. And right now we are releasing a product suite called GXP Assist AI. And if you break that down, it's really focused on GXP processes and an assist mechanism using AI. Basically, we want to find practical ways for AI to help you do tasks and operations that you do every day in a regulated environment. So one of those areas is Exam Generator. It's out right now in general availability to our customer base, and it's really a cool application of generative AI in that we find that so many people do training, but they do read and understood training, and they don't do competency-based exams. And one of the barriers to that is just that creating those exams can take a lot of time. And this tool that we've released is the ability to take your SOPs, run it through a large language model that's been tailored for training, and it helps you go through and extract questions to start building your exam and auto-generates those for you. It also gives you the ability to go in and highlight specific parts of an SOP and regenerate off of that so that you can really tailor and hone in on the parts of the content that you want to make sure people are trained on, and generates the initial questions. You can fine tune them with the human in the loop aspect and then put them into operations and into the training module. So very practical, but a lot of time savings, and also helps people maybe take something that they weren't doing just because of bandwidth and put it in place, which will yield, a better trained workforce. So we're taking that and we're also applying it to things like document translation. Now that can be when you are a company with a global footprint and you want to be able to translate SOPs into native language very quickly and very cost effectively. This tool helps you do that, but also for things like manufacturing, for shop floor personnel, making sure that they have an SOP that's in native language is something that can be very, very valuable, but oftentimes gets, skipped or not done because of the burden of doing that. AI is very good at helping you get to that first 80% translation. You can have a subject matter expert in language be able to validate it and approve it and move it forward. So that's kind of our approach, those practical uses of AI, but they can be very, very helpful.
Okay. Our next question, how does your system handle custom processes? Is that something that requires extra time and cost to develop? I will take this one because I have done it. So I've done it myself with our advanced quality event management software that was released earlier this year. It is a no-code custom and workflow builder specifically designed for quality event management. And I have actually gone in and created a custom process completely from scratch. And I am in marketing and I don't know how to code. So it really shows, how you're able to do that. And with this, you can take anything from the templates that we provide and use those as is, or you can iterate on those templates, or you can create something completely from scratch. And it's a really easy system. You create all the sections of your form, you decide which fields you want in there, you decide which data is tagged for capture and how that's going to be used in reports and custom reports later on. It can handle everything from a non-conformance to a kappa and everything in between. And I think one of the coolest things is that you can add custom logic into these forms and workflows. So when an end user is going through and filling out the form, based on the data that they are entering, it can logically route to exactly where you want it to go based on that data. So they aren't seeing a bunch of information on the form that doesn't apply to them and either filling things out in the wrong area or just getting frustrated or typing NA a lot. It just really surfaces for them exactly what they need and what they need to pay attention to. So that adds a lot of efficiency into your processes. And with the validation on demand that we talked about, you can iterate on those processes as much as you need, and you can literally revalidate it with the click of a button. So that has been really well received by our customers, and we're really excited about it. Okay, I will read the next question. Having everything on one platform sounds great, but can you integrate with other software as well? And I will let you do this one.
Okay, great. Yeah, the easy answer is yes. That is part of MasterControl's philosophy, is to make sure that we are part of your overall tech ecosystem, your tech stack, and that requires being able to integrate not only efficiently, but also in a robust manner. And so that's definitely a capability that we offer with our system, so that you have things like the quality management processes, your manufacturing execution processes, orchestrated on a single platform. But MasterControl is not an ERP. And if you're managing your bill of materials and your work orders through your ERP and your resource planning aspects of operations and want those integrated into, say, triggering your production runs, and you want that to trigger the production record execution in MasterControl, and you want that bill of materials to pull in to MasterControl, that is something we easily facilitate. And we do bi-directional data on that, so that when you are in production and you're at different phases or steps of production and you want to reconcile your consumed goods versus your planned goods, you can do that easily. And so that's just one example, but if you need to integrate to your equipment management application, if you need to have your CRM integrate into your QMS for complaints management, if you want to automate your quality control sample testing into your LIMS from your MES, we can facilitate all of those use cases. And as we started this conversation about growth and how complexity comes with growth, we want to be able to enable that broader ecosystem, but extract that complexity out. And to some of Jessica's points about automation, these integrations are critical to automating complex workflows that you don't want to be doing in a manual way. You don't want to be taking an export of data out of one system, importing it to another, and then trying to do analysis on it. we make sure that our systems can integrate with the rest of your systems and facilitate that automation that really accelerates your operations.
Great. So I'm sure with all of that, you want to know what the next steps are. We do have an excellent industry brief available now that I'm sure you're convinced that will help you convince others when it's time to upgrade your QMS and the benefits of doing that. We invite you to scan this QR code and download that industry brief and then come and talk to us about what that upgrade process might look like. We want to make it as easy as possible for you. And with that, we'd like to thank you very much for attending.